Hello and welcome to CBSN. I'm David Begnaud.
And I'm Meg Oliver. We're at the back of the newsroom talking with CBS News Elections Director Anthony Salvanto. Great to see you, Anthony.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Anthony, welcome back. So in a few hours, the numbers are going to come out, and we're going to find out who's going to make the cut for Thursday night's debate. But it's safe to say we already know, what, the top five?
Very safe to say we have a clear number one, and that's Donald Trump.
Right.
He's doubling up almost on Jeb Bush. In this poll, it's really been the case in a lot of the recent polls that have come out. So he'll certainly make the debate. He'll be center stage. He's at 24 to 13 for Jeb and 10 for Walker. You know, it's been interesting. Everybody's been kind of waiting. A lot of the pundits waiting for him to sink, him to fall in the polls. But in ours, we asked people, has your opinion of Donald Trump gotten better or gotten worse or unchanged over these recent few days? And more people say it's gotten better or hasn't changed than say that it's gotten worse, almost by 2 to 1.
That's interesting.
It is. And you also asked the voters to weigh in about the candidates' personal wealth and how the campaigns are funded. So what did you find there?
Well, you know, Trump has been going around saying, I'm rich, I'm wealthy, and that means I don't have any strings attached, right? I can do what I want, comparing himself to the other candidates who are going out there, and as you know, they've been raising money in droves, right? Well, we asked people if it matters, and while a lot of people say that it doesn't, the number who say that they prefer a candidate who is self-funded is by just about 3 to 1, more than the people who say that they prefer a candidate who was going out and getting donations. So maybe some of that argument has some resonance for Trump.
To your point, it's not like Trump's going to go away. He's got more money than all of them. So, you know, I don't think he's going to go away anytime soon. In terms of money, who do people prefer when it comes to business? Because that's what Trump touts. I'm the businessman.
It's a great question. And we have that in our poll where we ask confidence in making economic decisions, and Trump leads the candidates that we tested. 71% of Republican primary voters saying that they'd be confident in his decisions. Now, granted, all the candidates here do well, right? They've all got a majority of confidence. But Trump clearly leading the field. Some of that is because people are voting for him and they're excited about him and they're projecting that onto him. But he's clearly making inroads with saying that he can handle at least the economy, perhaps because of, the business background.
So it's still early, but looking ahead, who do voters think could actually win in a general election?
Another good point here in the poll for Trump. Well, he's got a 3-point lead, if you will, on Jeb Bush in the candidates that voters say could actually go on to win in 2016. Now, you asked this of the general electorate, and Trump's favorables are not the same as they are. They're lower than they are among Republican primary voters, so maybe that is or is not a fair assessment. But for now, remember, electability ultimately becomes a big determinant in who people vote for. We have a long way to go, but this is another positive finding for Donald.
I'm really interested in who's not going to make the debate on Thursday. So what's the top 10 looking like?
Right. Well, we will find out. We will find out later. And while it's going to be an average of polls that the debate will use to qualify for someone, right? The contest is really for that 9 and 10 spot. This is our poll. It's not the polling average, but it's fairly consistent with what's out there. And you see a number of candidates, Rubio, Carson, Cruz, they're probably going to get in. Then you get down to Rand Paul, Chris Christie, in our poll, Bobby Jindal, and Perry. One thing to remember when this announcement starts coming out, right? There is a margin of error around all of these estimates. They are estimates. Now, down here in the smaller numbers, that margin of error is not substantial, but the differences between these candidates are really tight. So if you imagine that there is this margin of error around a lot of these candidates and these numbers, you have to figure if we were to do this poll again, that's what the margin of error tells you. What would happen if we did the poll again? You might be up or down a point here and there. And that's going to cause, I think, a lot of controversy. I think that's going to cause a lot of discussion when we find out who makes the cut and who doesn't.
Well, Anthony, what happens if they are tied at the bottom?
I don't know. I don't think anybody does. But we will find out. You know, it could be, and you could do this a number of ways. You could go to decimal points if you decided to. You could, look at a different kind of average. You could try to fit a regression line through the candidates. You can do a lot of work statistically to try to figure it out. But suffice it to say that, we've got a tight race down there at the bottom, and it is going to get dicey.
Is it traditional to determine who gets in a debate based on the polls?
Well, we haven't seen this before. But what we also haven't seen before is a field this big.
Right.
Right? And we've got 16 candidates running, and part of the reason for that is that the spigots for money have opened up. Because candidates can raise a lot of money now. And part of the reason for that is that it's open, right? It's going to be an open White House. And so there's a lot of incentive, especially because the party that is not in the White House, often has an advantage when you have a two-term president, right? It's very hard to win that quote-unquote third term. So it's no surprise that we have a field that's this big, because it's really a prize that's probably worth having.
All right, before we let you go, any big surprise coming out of this polling?
Well, the numbers for Donald Trump are suggestive that he's not just capturing that anger, that dissatisfaction with Washington, which he clearly is. He's clearly got a lead among people who say that they are angry, and that's a substantial number of Republicans. But the numbers that you see in confidence on handling the economy, confidence in handling a lot of the issues, really do suggest that he's making more inroads and not just being a protest candidate, not just being a summertime candidate, that he's really starting to, some of that message is really starting to resonate. And that's what really jumped out at me here.
All right.
Anthony Salvanto, thanks for the numbers.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate you
We'll
being
see you
here.
tonight.
It was nice to stand up.
You are watching CBSN. When we come back, more with John Dickerson, Major Garrett. John was in New Hampshire, Major in Washington. More political talk when we come back in 90 seconds. Stay with us.